Have you ever had someone come to you who really needed help? Or someone, rather, who needed help but didn't want to admit it. And they asked you for help, but they didn't really want it. I one time had a guy call me up. He was working on a computer, and I'm a bit of a nerd. You guys know I've been working on some of the Facebook stuff and posting social media content, but I'm a bit of a nerd in general. I like to work on computers, and I've built a few of them. And this guy was building a computer, and he spent hours trying to figure it out and couldn't get it to work. He spent hours trying to get it all set up, and finally his wife told him to call me because she knew I knew what I was doing, but he didn't want to. But begrudgingly, he finally called me, and the entire time he's calling me, he's saying, well, I don't think that'll work. No, I've tried that. I've tried everything. I don't think you'll be able to get it. I haven't been able to figure it out. It took me about 5 minutes to figure out what the problem is. I told him what to do. And he said, well, I don't know. I don't think that'll work. And I told him, just try it. And it was fixed, just like that. Booted up, no problem. See, we all need help sometimes, but we don't always want to admit it. We don't always want to admit that we need help or to give up control over the situation. Because when we ask for help, that's what happens. We have to give up control, some amount of control of the situation or what's going on. And you know, we even need help with our families. We've learned a lot of great truths in this series on the family, about setting a course for the family. We've learned truths about making homework, how to conduct our family in a godly way, how to point them towards God. We've learned truths about discipline that trains and not just controls. That discipline that points our kids to being more like Christ, to showing them the reason why we do these things and that there is a reason why we live this way. We learned last week about media, taming the media monster, and making sure that we're not consumed by media. And what media is in our life is not pulling us away from God, but helping us to be more like Him and to serve Him better. We've learned a lot of great things about the family, but these actions, these things we've learned, they won't mean much if we forget the power behind it. If we forget the strength of God behind it. If we forget to ask for His guidance and His leading in these things. We can give our kids the best education. We can put them in a good Christian school or homeschool them in a good way. We can take them to church. We can make sure they come to each service and that they're in junior church. We can discipline them. And even with our spouses, we can love and treat them in a way that is good, in a way that is pleasing to God. But if we don't have the power of prayer in our life, it won't mean much. We can do these things, but they won't have the same power behind them. Because when we pray for our family, we're no longer relying on ourselves. We're no longer relying on our own ability or our own wisdom to rear them up in the right way or to lead them in the right way. But we're relying on that of God's. We're relying on God's power. The God who created this universe. The God who is all-knowing. And the God who is all-powerful. That's who we're seeking for help. And that's who we are running to. And it is only through going to Him that we will truly see a great work done in our family. That we'll truly see them led after Him and see His power there. See, this woman we just read about, she didn't pray in the normal sense that we do today, but it was a prayer nonetheless. She went to Christ with an urgent request. There was a need she had that she knew only He could solve, that only He could take care of. And so she goes to Christ on her knees and brings this request. The best thing we can do for our families is to pray for them, to seek God's guidance, strength, and presence in our home through the good times and bad, through the struggles and through the things that are happening, but also through when times are good, when things seem steady, when our kids seem to be doing well or our spouses seem to be doing well. We should still seek God's guidance in our home and seek God's leading in our home. But fighting for our family through prayer requires surrender in a few different areas. First, the first point, if you have your hand out there, is surrender yourself to God. See, this woman, she came before God for Christ. She fell before him with surrender of herself. First, she surrendered because she asked with worship. She had a dire request, but she took the time to worship Christ. We see that in Mark. If you turn over to Mark with me. Chapter 9, I believe it is. No. Sorry, I lost my place here. In Mark chapter 7, it says, "For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell at his feet." She falls before Christ's feet in a worshipful tone. And she gives Christ the proper reverence that he deserves. She gives Christ the proper reverence that he requires. See, sometimes when we come to God in prayer, we come to him with a need. We come to him with the need or request first, the things that we want to be done. But we forget to honor his name first. We forget to give him reverence because he is due that reverence. We forget to thank him for the things that he has already done. To thank him for the things we've seen him do and the work we've seen him do in our life. And this is important because when we come to Christ with this worship and with this reverence, it shows that we have faith that he will answer our requests. It shows that we have faith that he can actually do what we want him to do. And that he is capable of fulfilling it. Solomon, in point number 1 under that, we see Solomon as an example here. In 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 5, it says, "In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, 'Ask what I shall give thee.' And Solomon said, 'Thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day.'" Solomon, God comes to him and tells him, "Ask what you want. Ask what it is that anything you want, ask of me." And before Solomon makes any request, he starts with thanking God. He starts with thanking God for what he did for David and for him. For how he established David, how he kept his covenant with him and gave him a son to remain on the throne. And that he has established him now as the king. Someone comes to God with reverence, with thanks, with worship. Another example of this we see is Paul and Silas. If you turn to Acts 16 in verse 23, it says, "And when they laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in the stocks. And at midnight Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison of the earth were shaken, of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loose. See, Paul and Silas, they were in this dire situation. They had just been beaten. They had just been ridiculed and then put in prison. They were bound up, and what do? They pray to God, and they sing praises to him. And they lift up his name. And we see the result that happens here. We see the result of what happened by them worshiping God. This woman started with worship, and she came to him in worship. We should do the same. When we come before God in prayer, remember to worship him. Remember to praise him for what he's done. Because that not only lifts him up and glorifies him, but it instills in your heart that faith that what you're asking now, he can do. That what you're wanting from him now, he can and will do. And he will be there for you. But you have to surrender yourself in worship. Let it not just be about your requests, but about who God is. So, ask with worship. But secondly, letter B here, ask with humility. This woman came to Jesus in humility. We can see that clearly in this passage when Jesus says, "Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table." She doesn't deny it. She doesn't get offended that Jesus basically called her a dog, but rather she admits, yes, that is me. That is what I am. See, we see first under here an acknowledgement. Acknowledge your lack of merit. She didn't try to defend herself or give a reason why she deserved this request she was asking. She didn't try to give a reason why she deserved this from God. She acknowledged her status, her place, and she didn't try to fight what Jesus said about her. I think another example we see of this is we can see from the Roman centurion. If you turn to Matthew chapter 8 with me. In verse 5, we see this. "And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him." Look at verse 8 here with me. "The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed." This is coming from a Roman centurion, a high-ranking army official in the Roman army. And you probably have heard this before, but Rome definitely thought they were superior than the Jews. They definitely thought they were better than them. And a Roman citizen, any Roman citizen could ask a Jew to help him carry a burden for a mile. Because they were the rulers, they were the leaders, and they had power over the Jews. But here is a Roman centurion saying to Jesus, I am not worthy that you should come in my home. I am not worthy that you should even step into my place of dwelling. But Lord, please answer my request. Please heal this man. We see he acknowledged his lack of merit. And we should do the same when we come before God. We shouldn't expect that he should do something for us. We shouldn't expect that he will answer our request and do the things in our family that we want him to because we deserve it for some reason. Yes, we are his children. Yes, we are saved. But we don't deserve even that. We don't deserve salvation. We don't deserve anything he has done for us. Anything God has given us is by his grace. And so we should humble ourselves by acknowledging our lack of merit, but also our lack of means. This woman comes to Jesus for something she can't do. She comes to Jesus for something she needs help with. Something that she can't figure out herself. In verse 25, it says, Lord, help me. Lord, she says, help me. Those are often some of the hardest words to say, right? We want to figure out how to do things ourselves, or want to do things our own way and try to figure it out in the end. And we beat our heads against the wall, but ultimately we need help. We need this help from God. We need him to come into our lives, into our families, and to be there for us where we do what we cannot. So we need to humble ourselves and admit, God, I can't do this. We need to surrender ourselves in humility and say, God, I don't deserve this. I can't do this. I need you. There was a teacher I had in high school, and he would occasionally preach chapel for us. And every time he preached in chapel, he would pray and he'd say, God, I don't even deserve to be up here. God, I don't deserve to be speaking to these teens, and I don't know that I can do it. But I pray that you'll give me the power to preach your word and to say what needs to be said. He had a humility. He acknowledged his lack of merit, but also his lack of means, and realized he needed God's help. So we need to surrender ourselves first to God, to come before him and worship, but also admit we need him. We don't deserve it, but we need his help. And secondly here, we need to surrender. You need to surrender your family to God. Number 2 here is surrender your family to God. This woman here has come before Christ and asked him to help with her daughter. Her request is, Christ, cast this devil out of my daughter. Help me. I need you to come alongside me and to help in this situation. She wasn't just asking for her daughter, but she was asking for herself. Again, I point to verse 25 where she says, Lord, help me. It's easy to look at the problem and to say, Lord, just solve this problem, please. Or, Lord, just make this better. But that's not what she asked. She said, Lord, help me. Help me in this situation because I need your work. Not just my daughter here. She doesn't just need the devil cast out, but I need your help as I'm dealing with this and going through this struggle. She realized that it wasn't just a problem that needed to be solved, but she needed Christ to come alongside her to help her in this situation. When we bring our family before God, he will help us. But we shouldn't just bring the problems before God expecting him to fix it. See, there's point 1. We go to God and we bring our family before him to answer our request. We say, God, please help my child with this. They're dealing with this. Or, God, please give me wisdom in this situation. We want him to answer our request. Lord, heal my son as he's sick. Lord, be with my spouse as they're struggling with this thing at work. We want him to answer. But number two, we should ask him to partner with us. And I don't know if I said letter A here. Trust God to help. It's not on the screen, so I want to make sure that we get that. And then 1 and 2 I just said. But trust God to help and to come alongside of you, to partner with you as the parent, as you're leading your family, to help you and to guide you as you are seeking to lead your family in the right way. Because we like to have control over things, right? We like to hold on to things. And we can even do that with our families. We want to be the ultimate head. Men often want to be the ultimate head of their family. And we want to have control. And we'll take some biblical principles. We'll take some things that are good and things that, oh yeah, we'll apply that. But are we really surrendering our family to God and allowing him to come alongside us as we lead our family? To surrender some control over to him and allow him to help us as we steer our family. To give them over to him. to put them in his hands. David, where are you? You're right there. Can you come up here? Here we have David. And today we're going to say he's a husband and a parent. David, are you a husband and a parent? No. Well, you are today. So David, here is your spouse. And let's say these are your kids. I want you to hold them up for me. You're holding them up. You're keeping them together. You're holding them strong. And you're leading them. And you think you got a handle on it for now, right? Feel pretty good? Okay, step over aside and keep holding that for a little while. He's holding it, and we get that. We hold them up, and we think we got this together. We think we've got a good plan and a good way to lead our family. But we forget, or we lose sight that we need help. We think we got it all together, but we don't want God to come alongside us and to help us and to lift us up. But eventually these things will weigh down on us. Is it getting heavy yet? Getting there? Okay, keep holding. See, trusting God to help, it requires us to surrender ownership over our families. We have to surrender some leadership and some ownership over to God to help us. And he will come alongside us and help us and answer our requests. But letter B, we need to trust God to lead. Because we think we got a handle on things. We think we got a handle on things, and God will come and help us. He'll come and lift us up. He'll come and make it easier. Does that make it a little easier when I hold your arms up? Yeah, he'll come alongside us. He'll lift up our arms, and he'll kind of steer us in the direction we need to go. He'll answer the requests that we need. But ultimately, that's not where he wants to stop. Because he'll come alongside us and empower us and strengthen us as parents and as leaders of our families. But he ultimately wants to lead. And if we still stay in the driver's seat, even though God is helping, we'll steer off course. We'll struggle, we'll fall. How's it feeling? Tired? Tired? We need to trust God to take control. We need to trust God to take our spouse, to take our kids, and to lead them in the direction they need to go, to hold on to them for us, to lead them to the place that we can't lead them to. Because we can give them good principles, we can give them good truths, we can tell them what we think they need to know, but ultimately, we need God's leading in our lives to take them where they need to be. I want to give an example of this. You might be saying, Jordan, you're barely a parent. Your first one is on the way still and you don't have a kid. How are you saying all this about the family? And I'm like, that's fair. But I've seen this in the life of my parents. When I first started visiting here, before I was hired, I mentioned I'm high-functioning autistic. And the Lord has blessed and brought me a long way, but it was a real struggle for my parents growing up. They battled and they struggled with it, not knowing how to handle me, what to do, what way to lead me. And my mom tried to direct me and to tell me what was right, but she kept hitting a wall. She kept struggling. And there was a time where I admit I really battled my mom and fought her and treated her in horrible ways. But what she did changed my life. In those times, she realized, God, I can't do this. She realized that she couldn't control and to lead me in the way that I need to go. So she left it in God's hands. She began to pray, and I remember seeing her pray sometimes, and sometimes in tears, praying for me. And it was through her prayers that God started to answer and to change me, and to change my life, and to put me on the right direction. I'm a result of a mother who prayed. My father did as well, but I remember the example of my mother who, when she realized, God, I can't do this. I need you to lead. I need you to take control. We need to allow God to take control of our family and to lead them in the direction. And we ultimately, how's this feeling? Ultimately, what he'll do, if we allow God to have control and lead, is there will be times where he'll take this and say, it's completely in my hands now. There's no more you can do. Just leave it in my hands. And this is where we come to the final point. Surrender the outcome to God. Feeling better now? Thank you, David. Surrender the outcome to God. We need to leave when we go to God in prayer, when we pray for our family and we ask him to help our family and to lead them. We need to ultimately leave the outcome in his hands. The first point is leave it in God's hands. Mention that Jesus, in verse 26 here, he says, but he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. And that's a harsh statement at first, right? It's a harsh statement we see, but he's testing her. He is bringing the statement out to test her, to see what her response is to this. And her response in verse 27, and she said, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Again, she doesn't try to defend herself or to give her own merit or to explain why he should help her. But rather, she says, Lord, the dogs eat of the crumbs from the master's table. I'll take the crumbs. I'll take whatever I can get. I'll take whatever work you can do, whatever healing you will give, because I know it will be good. I know it will be better than anything I can do. She said she was fine with whatever Christ gave her, with the crumbs, with whatever she could get from him. She realized that these crumbs of what Jesus could do would be more than enough to help her with her daughter. Would be more than enough to cast this devil out. It'd be more than enough to put her back in the right direction, to heal her. She realized that whatever Christ did for her would be plenty. We need to trust that whatever Christ will do for us, when we take these requests before him, it's enough. In fact, it's more than enough. When we leave it in God's hands, whatever he does, it will answer it. It may not be in the way we expect. We have an expectation of what God will do when we bring these requests for him. And he doesn't always answer in the way we expect or the way we think he will. But he always answers. And he always answers in the way that is best for us and glorifies his name. So we need to leave it in God's hands, understanding that whatever the outcome is, it will be good. Whatever we get in response, it will be more than we need. It may not be what we want or expect, but it will be what is best for us. And there's going to be situations in life where we really can't control things. We can try to lead our family in a good way. We can try to love our spouse and to direct our kids after God. But ultimately, there's this little thing called free will. God has given us a free will. And ultimately, they will make the decision, am I going to take these things I've learned that my parents have taught me, and am I going to live after them? They will make the decision, am I going to follow these as I go through life? There's going to be dicey situations. There's going to be hard things that happen with our family and even with our spouse. And there's going to be things where we can try to lead them in the right direction. We can try to say, hey, maybe this isn't the best decision, or maybe this isn't the best person to be hanging out with. But we can discipline and we can correct them for what they're doing wrong. But there's going to be things that are out of our control, out of our hands. And there's going to be decisions made that we can't do anything about. And that is when we really need to leave it in God's hands. We need to say, God, I can't do this. I need you. God, I don't know how to handle this situation. Please take care of it. Please work and do what only you can. I've done as much as I can do, God. Please fill in the rest. We need to leave it in God's hands. But finally, we need to love it in God's hands. We need to give it to him, give our family over to him, and understand that whatever he does, it's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. It is going to be exactly what we need. We should have faith and confidence knowing that our family, they're in his hands. That we've requested to God, we've surrendered ourselves, we've surrendered them to him, and now he's in control. He's leading. He's working on their hearts. He is in the midst of our home. He is in the midst of our family. And we can have joy knowing that he has it in his hands. Will there still be some rough patches? Yes. Will there still be some hard times? Yes. But if we are truly fighting for our family on our knees, going to God, surrendering them before him, we can love knowing that God is in control. That God is the ruler of our lives and the ruler of our family, and he will direct. No matter what happens or what problem we are facing, God is in control and he is working. You need to trust in that. Hold to that. Think a shining example of a woman who prayed for her family is Hannah. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, if you want to turn there with me. 1 Samuel chapter 1. You might know the story of Hannah. She was married to this man named Elkanah. And Elkanah had another wife who was fruitful, who had multiple children, but Hannah was barren. And all she wanted was a child. She so desperately wanted a child of her own, one that she could raise, and one that she could give birth to, something that she had. And this weighed on her heavily. So what she did, she took it to God. In verse 10, it says, "And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." Even now, before the child is born, as she's requesting him of God, she surrenders him to God. Before the child is born, she surrenders him to him and gives him over to God. And this is part of her pleading and wanting God to answer her request, but she understood that if God was going to answer her request, it would require her to surrender herself and surrender her child. And so she already surrenders her child. Then continuing in verse 17, after a bit of a conversation with the priest Eli, who thought she was drunk in the state that she was in, she confirms she was just pouring out her heart to God. Then in verse 17, then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou asked of him." And she said, "Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. And look here." So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. She brought this urgent request before God about her family. And she already surrendered her family to God, her child to him. And now that she has brought her request before him and laid it in his hands and left the outcome up to him, she's no more sad. Her countenance is no more brought down. But she's eating again. She's light and she has mirth because she knows whose hands it's in. She knows who's in control now. She knows that her request is before God and the outcome is up to him. And whatever outcome it is, she knows it will be what is best and what is good. Verse 19, and they rose up in the morning early and worshipped before the Lord and returned and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. She surrendered herself. She surrendered her child and loved it. Left the outcome in God's hands and loved it there. And God remembered her. Wherefore it came to pass in that time, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord. God granted her request. He gave her the son. In verse 27, skip down to this. She says, for this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore have I also lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. She said, God granted my request, and I am keeping my end. My son is his. My son is his. He is surrendered to God's service. But finally, about Hannah, I just want to show here that she continued to pray. If you just look in verse 1 of chapter 2, it says, and Hannah prayed, and said, my heart rejoiceth in the Lord, mine horn is exalted in the Lord. She continued to pray. She prayed here in worship and in praising God for what he had done. And we don't see much more after that from Hannah, but I imagine she continued to pray for Samuel and continued to pray for the rest of her family. God blessed her with more children. God blessed her with many more children and a home and a family of her own. And I imagine she continued that heart of prayer and continued bringing them before God and surrendering them to him. And but we see the result of her fighting for her family on her knees, of her going before God, worshiping him, surrendering herself, and surrendering her family to God, and he answered. One more story, and then we'll be done. There was a woman who her son was away from the Lord. He had actually not been saved, and he went and just joined the army and started living a wicked lifestyle, just doing all kinds of wrong and living and trying to avoid church at all costs, avoid even his mom, because he didn't want to be around that Christian influence. He didn't want her trying to pull him and push him towards trusting in Christ. And he ran, and he ran, and he ran, and she didn't know what to do. She had tried directing him to God. She had tried telling him about Christ, but it just pushed him further away. So she did all that she could do, and she prayed to God. She said, God, he's in your hands. Please work in him. Break his heart and bring him to you. And when she prayed that, she left the outcome up to the Lord. But as she prayed that prayer, she made a commitment. Some of you might recognize the story because I used it a little while ago, but she made a commitment to God that in the meantime, while she was waiting, she would lead 1,000 people to the Lord every year. While she was waiting for her son to be saved, she wasn't just going to sit idle, but she was going to see that as many people as possible were saved and brought closer to Christ. If she couldn't save her son, she could at least keep doing her part in following after God and lead as many people as possible to the Lord. She kept that commitment. She led thousands and thousands of people to the Lord. Everywhere she went, she talked about Christ. Everywhere she went, she told someone about Jesus and sought to bring them into the loving knowledge of him. And eventually, many years later, God answered her request. Her son was saved. Her son was saved. He joined Bible college, became a pastor, began to raise his family, That's why my dad now is in the ministry. Because it was my grandfather that she was praying for, and my great-grandmother prayed for him and committed herself unto God, surrendered herself to God, then surrendered her family, surrendered the outcome to him. So if you're here this morning, and there may not be troubles in your family right now, things may be going well, things may be good, and I hope that they are. But I encourage you, create a life of prayer for your family. Fight for your family on your knees. May it not just be when the problems hit or when the bad times come, but may it be every day. God, help me with my family. Show me what I need to do and take the lead. I surrender the outcome to you. May we surrender ourselves, our family, and the outcome to God in prayer. May we see him do great things in our family because of it.